4 Navy SEALs against 200 Taliban fighters. No air support, no reinforcements, no way out. They fought until their ammunition ran out, until their bodies were broken, until 3 of them lay dead on the Afghan mountainside. Only 1 survived, crawling for miles with a broken back, multiple gunshot wounds, and shrapnel throughout his body. This is the story of the deadliest day in Navy SEAL history. The story of brotherhood, sacrifice, and one man's impossible survival. Stay until the end to discover how he lived when everyone else died. Marcus Luttrell was born on November 7, 1975, in Houston, Texas. He entered a world of Texas heat, open spaces, and traditional American values. His father, David Luttrell, worked in the oil industry. His mother, Holly, raised Marcus and his twin brother Morgan with strict discipline and high expectations. The Luttrell twins grew up knowing they were expected to be tough, self-reliant, and honorable. From their earliest memories, Marcus and Morgan were inseparable. Identical twins often share a special bond, and the Luttrell brothers were no exception. They did everything together, played together, fought together, competed against each other in sports and school. They pushed each other to be better, faster, stronger. The competition between them was fierce, but loving, each brother demanding excellence from the other. The Luttrell family lived in a rural area where traditional values still meant something. Marcus's parents taught their sons about God, country, and duty. They emphasized that being a man meant protecting those weaker than yourself, standing up to bullies, and never backing down from a fight you didn't start. These were old-fashioned values, but they shaped the Luttrell brothers profoundly. Marcus and Morgan learned to hunt and shoot at a young age. Their father taught them gun safety, marksmanship, and respect for weapons. By age 10, both brothers were excellent shots, comfortable with rifles and pistols. They hunted deer in Texas hill country, learning patience, fieldcraft, and the importance of making the first shot count. These skills would later save Marcus's life. A neighbor, Billy Shelton, had a major impact on the Luttrell brothers. Shelton was a former Army Special Forces soldier who had served in Vietnam. He was tough, disciplined, and still maintained the mindset of a special operations warrior. He saw potential in the Luttrell twins and offered to train them in military skills and physical conditioning. Starting when they were about 14 years old, Marcus and Morgan began training with Billy Shelton. He ran them through brutal physical conditioning, runs, obstacle courses, swimming, calisthenics. He taught them hand-to-hand combat, weapons handling, and mental toughness. The training was voluntary, but once they started, Shelton didn't allow quitting. You either finished the workout or you didn't come back. The Luttrell brothers never quit. This training was extraordinary for teenagers. While their classmates were playing video games and hanging out at the mall, Marcus and Morgan were doing forced marches with weighted backpacks, practicing combat roles, and learning to push through exhaustion and pain. Billy Shelton was preparing them for military special operations, though they didn't fully understand it at the time. Marcus attended high school in Huntsville, Texas, where he played football and continued his intense physical training with Billy Shelton. He wasn't the biggest player on the team, but he was one of the toughest. Coaches noticed that Marcus Luttrell never quit, never complained, and seemed immune to pain. He played through injuries that would have sidelined other players, driven by a fierce competitive spirit and refusal to show weakness. After graduating high school in 1994, Marcus attended Sam Houston State University briefly, but college didn't suit him. He was restless, eager to test himself in the real world, to prove the toughness that Billy Shelton had been cultivating for years. In 1999, at age 24, Marcus Luttrell enlisted in the United States Navy. He had one goal: become a Navy SEAL. The Navy SEALs were America's maritime special operations force, warriors trained to operate in sea, air, and land environments, conducting the most dangerous missions in the military. SEAL training was legendary for its difficulty. Basic underwater demolition, or BUDS training, had a failure rate over 75%. Most men who attempted it quit or were eliminated. But Marcus Luttrell had been preparing for this his entire life. BUDS began with a screening process that eliminated anyone not physically ready. Marcus passed easily. Billy Shelton's training had prepared him well. Then came the real training. 6 months of the most physically demanding military training in existence. Running, swimming, carrying boats, doing thousands of push-ups and pull-ups, all while instructors screamed and actively tried to make students quit. The defining moment of BUDS is Hell Week, 5.5 days of continuous physical training with almost no sleep. Students run over 200 miles, swim for miles in cold ocean water, and endure constant physical harassment while wet, cold, and exhausted. About 70 to 80% of candidates quit during Hell Week. Marcus Luttrell thrived. Everything Billy Shelton had taught him was paying off. He had learned to ignore pain, to push through exhaustion, to never quit no matter what. He completed Hell Week, then the rest of BUDS, graduating as a Navy SEAL in 2001. Marcus's twin brother Morgan also became a SEAL, graduating from BUDS around the same time. The Luttrell twins had achieved their goal together, just as they had done everything else in their lives. They were now among the most elite warriors in the American military, ready to deploy wherever the nation needed them. Then came September 11th, 2001. Marcus was completing advanced SEAL training when terrorists attacked the World Trade Center and Pentagon. Like all SEALs, Marcus knew he would be in combat soon. The nation was going to war, and Special Operations Forces would be at the tip of the spear. Marcus and Morgan both wanted to deploy, to use their training, to fight the people who attacked America. Marcus deployed to Iraq in 2003 as part of a SEAL Team 5. He participated in combat operations during the invasion and occupation, conducting raids, capturing insurgents, and gathering intelligence. The deployment was dangerous and demanding, but Marcus proved himself as a capable combat operator. He returned to the United States in 2004, then prepared for his next deployment, to Afghanistan. In 2005, Marcus deployed to Afghanistan as part of a SEAL team operating in the mountains near the Pakistani border. Afghanistan was different from Iraq. Higher altitude, more rugged terrain, tribal culture, and an enemy that knew the mountains intimately. The Taliban and their al-Qaeda allies used the mountain regions as safe havens, crossing back and forth across the Pakistani border to avoid American forces. On June 27, 2005, Marcus Luttrell and 3 other SEALs, Lieutenant Michael Murphy, Gunner's Mate 2nd Class Danny Dietz, and Sonar Technician 2nd Class Matthew Axelson, were inserted by helicopter into the mountains of Kunar Province. Their mission, codenamed Operation Red Wings, was to conduct surveillance on a Taliban leader named Ahmad Shah, who was responsible for killing American soldiers. The 4-man team hiked to a position overlooking the village where Ahmad Shah was believed to be hiding. They established an observation post and began watching the village, gathering intelligence. The mission was supposed to be covert: observe, report, and extract without being detected. But everything went wrong almost immediately. While the SEALs were in their observation position, a group of Afghan goat herders stumbled upon them. 3 Afghan men and a teenage boy tending their goats on the mountainside walked right into the SEAL position. The SEALs detained them immediately, but now faced an impossible decision. They could kill the goat herders, ensuring the mission remained covert, but these were unarmed civilians, not combatants. Killing them would be murder, a war crime. They could tie them up and leave them, but the men might die of exposure before being found. Or they could release them, knowing the herders would almost certainly alert the Taliban to the American presence. Lieutenant Murphy, the team leader, made the final decision after consulting with his men. They would release the goat herders. It was the right moral choice, following the rules of engagement and American values, but it was also a decision that would cost 3 of them their lives. Within an hour of releasing the goat herders, the SEALs came under attack. A force of 80 to 100 Taliban fighters, armed with AK-47s and rocket-propelled grenades, surrounded their position and opened fire. The 4 SEALs were outnumbered 20 to 1, trapped on a mountainside with limited ammunition and no cover. What followed was one of the most intense firefights in SEAL history. The 4 Americans fought with extraordinary skill and courage, using superior marksmanship and tactics to hold off a vastly larger force. But the odds were impossible. The Taliban had the high ground, unlimited ammunition, and reinforcements. The SEALs were fighting for their lives, knowing they would probably die on this mountain. Marcus Luttrell described the battle as chaos and violence beyond anything he had imagined. Bullets impacted all around them. RPGs exploded nearby, throwing shrapnel and rocks. The SEALs fired back, dropping Taliban fighters with precise shots, but more kept coming. They were forced to retreat down the mountainside, tumbling and falling over cliffs, breaking bones, but continuing to fight. Lieutenant Murphy made a desperate decision. The team needed help immediately, or they would all die. But they were in a valley surrounded by mountains, and their radio couldn't reach their base. Murphy exposed himself to enemy fire, climbing to an exposed position where he could get a signal. He called for help, reporting their situation and requesting immediate extraction. While making that call, Lieutenant Murphy was shot multiple times. He completed the call, ensuring that help was coming, then returned to the fight despite his wounds. He continued fighting until he was killed by enemy fire. His actions saved Marcus Luttrell's life. The call brought rescue helicopters, though they would arrive too late for everyone else. Danny Dietz fought with extraordinary courage despite being wounded multiple times. He continued firing until his weapon ran out of ammunition, then used his pistol, then fought hand-to-hand with Taliban fighters. He was shot over 20 times before finally dying. His body was later recovered, showing that he had fought until the last moment of his life. Matthew Axelson also fought despite severe wounds. He was shot in the chest and head, but continued engaging the enemy, covering his teammates' withdrawal. He ran out of ammunition and died from his wounds, having killed numerous Taliban fighters. His last thoughts were likely of his teammates, trying to give them a chance to survive. Marcus Luttrell was also severely wounded. He was shot multiple times, had shrapnel throughout his body, broke his back in a fall, and was beaten unconscious by Taliban fighters. But somehow, he survived. Whether through luck, divine intervention, or sheer toughness, Marcus lived when his 3 teammates died. When Marcus regained consciousness, he was alone on the mountainside. His teammates were dead. Taliban fighters were searching for him. He was severely wounded, could barely move, and had limited ammunition. Any rational assessment would conclude that Marcus Luttrell was going to die on that mountain. But Marcus had spent his entire life preparing to survive impossible situations. He started crawling. For the next 4 days, Marcus Luttrell crawled through the Afghan mountains. He had a broken back, multiple gunshot wounds, and shrapnel injuries. He was dehydrated, starving, and in constant danger of being found by Taliban fighters. He hid during the day, moved at night, and used every survival skill he had ever learned. It was agony, but Marcus refused to quit. His teammates had died. He owed it to them to survive, to tell their story, to make their sacrifice mean something. Eventually, Marcus reached a small Afghan village. The villagers, following the Pashtun code of hospitality called Pashtunwali, took him in and protected him from the Taliban. They gave him food, water, and medical care. When Taliban fighters came to the village demanding they turn over the American, the villagers refused, risking their own lives to protect Marcus. One villager walked for miles to an American base to report that they had a wounded American soldier. A rescue team was dispatched immediately. On July 2nd, 2005, 5 days after the battle, Marcus Luttrell was rescued by American forces. He was emaciated, broken, and traumatized, but alive. He was the only survivor of Operation Red Wings. But the cost of Operation Red Wings was staggering.
In addition to the 3 SEALs killed in the initial battle, a rescue helicopter carrying 8 more SEALs and 8 Army Special Operations soldiers was shot down by a Taliban RPG. All 16 men on board were killed instantly. Operation Red Wings cost 19 American lives, the deadliest day for Navy SEALs since World War II. Marcus Luttrell was evacuated to Germany, then to the United States for medical treatment. He underwent multiple surgeries to remove shrapnel, repair damaged organs, and address his broken back. The physical recovery took months, but the psychological recovery would take years. Marcus was crushed by survivor guilt. Why had he lived when 19 better men had died? Why was he in a hospital bed while his teammates were in graves? Lieutenant Murphy was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor for his actions, exposing himself to enemy fire to call for help, knowing it would likely cost his life, but giving his teammates a chance. Danny Dietz and Matthew Axelson were awarded the Navy Cross, the second highest military decoration. All 3 men were heroes who fought to the end. Marcus Luttrell struggled to accept that he was the survivor, that he would have to carry the memory of that day for the rest of his life. He attended the funerals of his teammates, meeting their families, trying to explain what happened, unable to adequately convey their courage and sacrifice. These were the hardest moments of his life, facing the parents, wives, and children of men who died while he lived. In 2007, Marcus published a book about his experiences, Lone Survivor, written with Patrick Robinson. The book became a massive bestseller, introducing millions of Americans to the story of Operation Red Wings. Marcus wrote honestly about the battle, his teammates' courage, and his own struggles with survival and guilt. The book resonated deeply with military and civilian audiences. In 2013, Lone Survivor was adapted into a film directed by Peter Berg and starring Mark Wahlberg as Marcus Luttrell. The film was a commercial and critical success, bringing even more attention to the story. Marcus served as a consultant on the film, ensuring that his teammates were portrayed accurately and honorably. The film's dedication read, "In memory of all those who have sacrificed for our freedom." Marcus Luttrell struggled with PTSD and survivor guilt for years after Operation Red Wings. He had nightmares about the battle, replaying every decision, wondering if he could have done something different to save his teammates. He struggled with anger, depression, and difficulty adjusting to civilian life, but he refused to give up, just as he had refused to quit on that mountainside. Marcus found purpose in honoring his fallen teammates and helping other veterans. He started the Lone Survivor Foundation, a nonprofit organization helping wounded veterans and their families. The foundation provides therapeutic retreats where veterans can heal physically and mentally, surrounded by people who understand their experiences. Marcus poured his energy into this mission, finding healing through helping others. He also became a public speaker, sharing his story at military events, corporate gatherings, and schools. Marcus spoke about leadership, teamwork, sacrifice, and never quitting. His message resonated because it came from lived experience. He had survived the impossible and could teach others about resilience and determination. Marcus married Melanie Juneau in 2010, finding love and stability after years of chaos and trauma. Melanie understood the challenges of being married to a combat veteran with PTSD. She supported Marcus through his struggles, giving him the home and family he needed to fully heal. They eventually had children, giving Marcus a new purpose and joy. The Afghan villagers who saved Marcus faced Taliban retaliation. The Taliban attacked the village repeatedly, trying to punish the villagers for protecting an American. One villager, Muhammad Gulab, who had personally cared for Marcus, eventually had to flee Afghanistan with his family. Marcus helped bring Gulab to the United States, repaying the debt he owed the man who saved his life. Marcus represents the best of American military service: courage in combat, loyalty to teammates, and determination to survive and honor the fallen. His story has inspired thousands of young Americans to join the military, to push themselves beyond what they thought possible, to understand that sacrifice and service are still noble callings. But Marcus would say that he isn't the hero of Operation Red Wings. The heroes are Michael Murphy, Danny Dietz, and Matthew Axelson, who fought to the death rather than surrender or abandon their teammate. The heroes are the 16 men who died trying to rescue them, flying into a combat zone knowing the risks. Marcus survived, but he has spent the rest of his life ensuring that